So this is Hotline Miami, and what an incredible game. I love it. It's it's so focused on the gameplay, but I also love the atmosphere and the graphics and the mood of the game. Like the atmosphere reminds me so much of a Suda 51 game like Killer 7 or No More Heroes, Shadows of the Damned. Like definitely the vibes are there. I wouldn't be surprised if they were influenced by Suda 51, but I can't confirm that. It yeah, it has such fast gameplay, and it it's challenging, but it's never frustrating. I liken it to Super Meat Boy in that it's really hard, but since you can restart so quickly, and the checkpoints are, when you get to a new floor, so you don't have to do that much in order to get back to where you left off. But it's still very challenging, and it's a very good amount of challenge. It strikes the right balance between skill and trial and error gameplay. And there's lots of different tactics, lots of different ways to play this. You can, use guns, but you can also play it stealthy, which is kind of like an unusual characteristic to have in a 2D top-down game. I mean, you could say Metal Gear did it first, but this game isn't based around the line of sight mechanic that Metal Gear had. You actually have to pay attention to what weapons you use, and using quiet weapons to not alert other enemies, or if you do want to use loud weapons, you can use them to spring traps on enemies and lure them into like a kill zone. So I like that you can, it encourages replayability. And the gameplay is so solid. The shooting and the melee, they all feel really good. It's really satisfying to kill enemies because most of them are one-shot kills. So it's fast and furious and really satisfying. There's lots of blood. This game has better gunplay than a lot of 3D shooters that I played before. Amazing how a 2D game can pull that off. The music's great. Like I mentioned before, it fits the atmosphere of the game. Sometimes the music could loop a little too quickly for my taste, but it's mostly great. Enemy variety's pretty good. You got your grunt guys that have either melee weapons or gun weapons, and then you got like the big guys that can take more than one hit but move quick, and then you got dogs. One of the cool things about this game is that kind of like helps spice up the gameplay of the masks. And you don't even have to use any masks, but they each bestow like a unique effect that helps also vary the gameplay and keep it interesting, so you can experiment around with different masks. And different masks are more advantageous on different missions than others. So that's really, really cool. Really, my only complaint about the game is sometimes the very nature of the 2D top-down perspective, it limits what you can see, right? And you have to hold down a button in order to look around. That's all fine. But the enemies have like unlimited range and unlimited sight, so they often can hit you off screen. And it can feel unfair. There is a mask that increases your look distance. So, it's part of the challenge of the game, I get that. But it can be frustrating, but it's never frustrating so much to the point of where it like negatively impacts the game. And it's kind of like one of those things that's just, it's part of the game, it's part of the challenge. It is unfair, but it's not too unfair. You know, it's never a cause for, you know, being so frustrated that you give up on the game. It's not really something they can correct either. It's a consequence of having this top-down perspective. That's all. And really, that's all I have to say about it. I think the graphics are fantastic. They're perfect. I love how grimy and nasty the artwork is. Like when they do like these portrait shots of the enemies. It has a very similar art style to this other development company that existed back in the 90s when I was a kid called Bloodlust Software. They made this game called Executioners. Very, very similar art style to those games, to the games that they made. Maybe one day I'll stream that to show it off. They made like a beat 'em up called Executioners. The story in this game it's kind of weird. Like I don't really get it, but it's still like endearing. Like it's still like charming. Like I said, it has that Suda 51 vibe to it. So even though you don't really know what's going on, it's never intrusive and never gets in your face to the point of where it's unwelcome or interferes with the gameplay at all. It doesn't do that, and that's perfect. But it's still interesting enough that you actually want to watch those intro scenes, which don't have any kind of impact on the gameplay, but are still interesting to play through. And despite the one-shot nature of the game, they're still able to come up with some pretty interesting boss fights that are really enjoyable and creative. So, you know, the amount of passion and work that went into this game is remarkable, that they were able to create such an amazing game from such a simple concept, you know, just shooting in the top-down perspective. It's really impressive and a fantastic video game that was made by indies. Indies are what's keeping gaming alive because they focus all on the gameplay, and I love it. So yeah, an amazing, wonderful game. So good. Whether you like indies or just like video games, it's fantastic. And that's all I gotta say.